someone needs to get me in touch with the BBC. Now, the reason I say that is I hear that the BBC is currently accepting pitches and tenders for Doctor Who. And I've been thinking about it, and I think I may have an idea on how to not only pick up and resolve all of the cliffhangers left by the last era of Doctor Who, but also a plan to continue it for at least the next 5 to 6 years in the build-up to the 70th anniversary. So, for those that don't know me, my name is Gardo. I host a geek-focused podcast where I talk films and TV. I have done a couple of episodes reviewing Doctor Who, and I have done many other episodes on other things besides. One of my recent episodes that I put a lot of time and work in was discussing toxic fandom, and as part of that, I explored how having fans as creators of things can be a good thing, but it can also be a bad thing. And so, with that in mind, I'm going to put forward my credentials as a Doctor Who fan. Being British, Doctor Who was one of those things I was always kind of culturally aware of. I think the first thing I ever watched was Doctor Who and the Curse of Fatal Death, which is a Red Nose Day special created by Stephen Moffat during the Wilderness years. With the modern Doctor Who, when it began in about 2005, I didn't initially watch it. I was aware of it, but I always thought it looked a bit cheesy and a bit ropey, and also never got the time to watch. Obviously, it continued to grow, continued to be quite successful, and obviously, becoming aware of it, I then learned about the Voyage of the Damned Christmas special starring Kylie Minogue. That was the first proper episode of Doctor Who I watched, and from there I went on to watch Series 4 with Catherine. I will say, were it not for Matt Smith and Karen Gillan and Arthur Darvill as the 11th Doctor and the Ponds, David Tennant as the 10th Doctor, and Donna Noble as Catherine Tate as Donna Noble would be my favourite TARDIS group. Now, after watching Series 4 and the specials, I obviously then caught up on everything that had come before in the modern era. I still have yet to watch much of the classic era of Doctor Who. I have seen a few isolated episodes here and there. Not much, but I have watched most of the modern run of the show. I think I still have to watch Flux, and that's about it. I'm gradually working my way through it all to review on my podcast. The 13th Doctor episode is not done yet, obviously, because I still haven't watched Flux, but my episodes on Russell T Davies's first era as the Doctor and both the 11th and 12th Doctor's eras under Stephen Moffat are both up on my Linktree. You can find them on Spotify, YouTube, etc. Now, I watched all of Ncuti Gatwa's episodes as the Doctor under Russell T Davies's second era as showrunner, and it has its faults, but it also has a lot of good points as well. I think there's a lot of potential for the future. It was clear they seem to have been building to a 3-year plan, and unfortunately, due to the issues with Disney, due to a variety of other things, that doesn't seem to be the thing anymore. As a result, a lot of things that were kind of teased and set up in that second series to lead into the third are now sitting there without a possible conclusion. I'm nearly home and it's after school, so I might do the rest when I catch up in my bedroom. Give me a sec. Right, it's far too warm, but I'm back at home. So, the biggest cliffhangers, as far as I can see, are obviously the Doctor regenerating into Billie Piper, which means that the Doctor, who wasn't credited as the Doctor, which is also important, but the Doctor now has Rose's face. Now, Rose's face is more often linked with Bad Wolf. So I think there's story potential there to resolve that issue, especially because I think it's unlikely that Billie Piper would want to come back for more than a special or two, maybe. She's a very busy woman nowadays. The next biggest plot point that stands out to me after that is Susan. It seems clear that they were planning on bringing back Caroline Ford as the Doctor's granddaughter of Susan, and possibly linking her to Poppy. Apparently there were numerous scenes filmed around that, and they all seem to have been cut. Them being filmed, though, means they are still on the table, and they can be edited in some way to be included. I say that only because the actress who plays Poppy will have grown older since those were filmed. Beyond that, there are a few other points. The most obvious and biggest one seems to be the recurring elements dropped of a character called the Boss. This was referred to by the Meep and also by the Time Hotel worker. I've forgotten her name now, the one from the Christmas special who returned in the Reality War. Now, I think that Boss could be used as an enemy for the special and linked in some way to Bad Wolf to resolve those elements. Haven't quite thought it all through entirely yet. I've got the idea, I've got the kernel of an idea. I need to sit with it and think. And I'm also thinking it could possibly be used to also bring back Rogue, who's also trapped in some kind of netherware somewhere. Other big plot threads that are kind of left dangling are the Fugitive Doctor. I'm aware there's a big multimedia project going on with her at the minute, but there was also the idea that her story is yet to be told. So I think there's potential there. Regarding the build-up to the 70th anniversary, like I said, the idea of like a 5-year plan, there are a couple of big ideas that have happened, big stories that have happened that haven't really been explored in terms of how they affect the Doctor. The biggest one to me being the revelation of the Timeless Child. I know a lot of fans are very unhappy with it. Same with the Flux. Same with the destruction of Gallifrey again at the hands of the Master. Even some people are very unhappy about the Pantheon. I quite like the Pantheon and the Toymaker and the Maestro and things like that. So I'm not quite adverse to a lot of those ideas. I think there is potential to link a lot of those things, and I think destroying Gallifrey again was a bad idea. And I also think introducing the Timeless Child idea without any way of doing anything with it should be explored. I think we need to explore how this affects the Doctor, and Russell T Davies did sort of start doing that. There were some elements of that in the 60th specials. I like the idea, for example, that the Doctor is adopted now. The Doctor has no parentage, and that's an interesting idea. The idea of the Doctor being older than they think, also kind of touched on with the Fugitive Doctor. The idea that there is past lives of the Doctor that we haven't seen is a very interesting idea, and there's a lot of storytelling there. But I think any of that storytelling shouldn't be focused on lore. It should be focused on how does this affect the Doctor now, the character that we follow. How does that revelation affect them now? And I say them because the Doctor could be any gender, as far as I'm concerned. Any gender, any race. I would quite like to see a female Doctor again after Billie Piper, because I don't think Billie Piper's going to, like I said, going to stay more for a special. So I would want to ideally go into this 5-year plan with one Doctor for those 5 years. And to me, that suggests hiring an unknown and probably quite young actor, because we know that the role of the Doctor is quite an intensive one. And also, as the Doctor, you are not just acting the role as the Doctor, you are a brand ambassador for Doctor Who. That is a big role, and that is one that some actors have seemed more willing to be than others. There are, no shade on actors like Ncuti Gatwa. He's a very busy man. He's doing a lot right now. He doesn't have the time to be the brand ambassador for Doctor Who full time, because he is getting a lot of offers as as his star is taking off. I want someone young, someone who was like Matt Smith when they took on the role, someone who was relatively unknown but was willing to do it for a significant portion of time and put a lot of work and effort into it. And Matt Smith did that. They were brilliant at it. They've now gone on to huge success. They're doing things like House of the Dragon. They're doing very well. Companions, I'm thinking at least one companion, possibly two, ideally one of them not being from modern day Earth. I'm thinking a Victorian companion. But beyond that, my big plan overall is bringing back Gallifrey. I think not having Gallifrey available creates more problems than having Gallifrey available makes. I think it's got more storytelling telling potential to have Gallifrey available and have the Time Lords available for the Doctor. So that would be my goal. Bring back Gallifrey and ideally get some new villains in. While I'd love to revisit the Master, the Daleks, the Cybermen, let's get some new stuff in. So yeah, BBC, call me. I've got ideas for you.